So this webinar is all about creating a RESTful web application with Node.js with the Express framework. Here we will be discussing about this Node environment, and in the Node environment how can we use a Express framework. So before we go into the session, let me introduce myself. My name is Dinesh and I have nearly 10 years of experience in development and design. My day-to-day work is building an end-to-end web application with only this one language called JavaScript. In the traditional web applications, what we do, for the client side, whatever you need to write, we will be using JavaScript. Then the server side, Java or .NET or PHP will be using this. Later in the DB side also we will be making the queries using SQL or Oracle, like that. But now, in a new way, you should be able to build an end-to-end web application with only one language called JavaScript. It will be running on the client side as well as server as well as DB. So if you use MongoDB, it will compile your JavaScript code. You can write all the scripting in JavaScript itself. Okay. So if you guys have any other question regarding this webinar, you can post it in the question window. Once I finish a particular module, I will be able to answer for all of your questions. Because in between, if I answer for your questions, we may navigate from this particular topic to some other things. So we can't complete this module in the estimated time. So whatever you have questions, you just post it in the question window. Once I complete a particular module, I will be answering. So what is the objective of our today's webinar? So in this webinar, we will be discussing about Node.js. What is Node.js? And why do we need to use Node.js and over other traditional web applications like Java, .NET or PHP? And what is the use of NPM in Node.js? Then we have a number of frameworks in Node.js. Then why do we need to choose Express framework over that? Then how can we create a web services using this Express framework? At last, we will be doing this MongoDB configurations and how can we query the MongoDB, get data, put data, or update. We will be discussing about these things in our today's session. First, what is Node.js? Node.js is an open source, cross-platform runtime environment. So normally, in the traditional way, we will be having Java or .NET. These are the technology we will be using for the server side. How do? We will be having our server, it is Apache Tomcat server or ISS server, whatever it is. Just we will be writing our code and deploy that in that particular server. For that, what we need to do, you have to learn that particular language also. But now I am just a UI developer. I want to implement in the server side also. Otherwise, I want to create some RESTful APIs, or I want to store some data in the MongoDB. For that, I have to learn other technology like Java or .NET. Instead of that, just with only one technology, we should be able to build an end-to-end web application. That is possible under Node.js. In the Node.js, how does it act as? You just install this Node.js in your machine. It will act as a server and runtime environment. You need not to have some separate server to run your Node application. On top of this Node, you should be able to write a JavaScript code which is running on the server side. So how does it run on the server side? In the JavaScript dollar. So this Node.js internally is having Google's V8 engine, which compiles your JavaScript code into your machine language, so it can run on the server side also. So whether is it supported in all the machines? Yes, it is fully supported in Windows, Ubuntu, Mac, everything. So you can install this Node.js in everywhere and it can act as a server. Next, so what is special about Node.js? Already we have this Java and .NET, PHP, so we have well documented everything and we have more number of resources. Over these technologies, first, why do we need to choose this new technology, Node.js? Node.js is having some main features like single threaded. So if you are creating any other web application, we have to handle it, all the threadings. For example, we will be having n number of requests. So what do we do in the Java? We will create a multi-threads. So each and every process will be handled by a thread. Then, for example, I have created 10 threads in my Java application, but I am getting 12 processes. So what will happen? All these 10 processes will be handled by this thread. The other 2 will be in the waiting stage. So once this process is over, then this thread will come to the free state. Again, these 2 processes will be processed. This is how normal traditional web applications will be working. But the Node.js is a single threaded. How does it work? It will be having the event queue. Whatever the process you are getting, everything will be pushed to the event queue. From the event queue, it will be allocated to the event loop. So in the event loop, so for example, I have this is the process. First, I am making one process which I need to read the data from particular file. Next process, write the data into particular file. Okay. So here I have this one. The first whatever I need to read the data, that process will take n number of times. So just consider it will take 10 seconds. And just the reading the data will take only 2 or 3 seconds. First, I am making a query to write the data. Then next query, I am filing to read the data. So now the traditional web application, what will happen? First, this read data will happen. Once that is over, it will give the response. That response will be sent to the client side. Next, the second process will be taken. It will be processed and it will give the response. But here it won't work like this. Each and every event or process will be passed to the event queue. It will be passed to a event loop. First, the writing the record will be happening. In the same time, the reading record will be passed over there. So the writing to the file will be taking 10 seconds. Before that itself, this reading process will be ended. That will give the response to the UI. It won't wait till the first process is ended. Then it won't take the next one. So this Node.js is a processing the non-block mechanism. Also, it will be more faster than other traditional web application. Normally, JavaScript is asynchronous programming. So whenever you write a program, it won't wait the first function to complete. Just whatever the function is complete, it gives the response that will be passed to the client. So it will be more faster than other traditional web application. This is one of the best usage of Node.js. In the Node.js, if you see, we have something called NPM. So what does it mean by NPM? So NPM stands for Node Package Manager. It is just not only the Node tool. So how does it work this? For example, I want to build some kind of features in my server side. So normally if you are UI developers, what do you do? For example, I want to do some drag and drop functionality. I don't need to write the code from the scratch. Already these functionalities are available in the jQuery format or any other format. Just I will include the plugin in my HTML page, so I should be able to access all the functionalities. In the same way, for server side, whatever the functionality you wanted to write, that will be available in this NPM repository. So this is not just developed by only the Node developers. Whoever knows Node, they can create their own NPM modules and they can publish it over there. In the same way, so people have published a number of NPM modules. For example, now we are going to talk about the Express also. That is also one of the NPM modules. It is developed by some other developers, which will be available in the NPM repository. In the same way, we have a number of modules. For example, if I want to process this REST APIs, so in the REST APIs, what do? We will be sending the data from our client to our server side. Over there, we will be reading the record. So if we want to read the record, we will be getting it from our request URL, that will be the body parameters, right? So if you want to pass the JSON, you have to use this body parser module. To write this body parser module, you have to write a number of logic or code. You need not to write from the scratch. What do? Already this module is available. Just take this module from our repository, include it in our project, you can use it as a middle layer. So automatically whatever JSON you are passing from there, that you can read it from the REST URL itself, from the request. Like that you can use all the NPM modules. In the NPM modules, if you see, we have two kind of packages. One is local and another one is the global. So if you guys are Node developers, so you might hear something about Grunt, Bower or Karma, these kind of tools. These are all not only specific to the project. It can be there in your machine itself. You can install those packages in your system. So the Bower is mainly for if you want to download any other client-side components like AngularJS or jQuery. What do we do? Just we will go to our terminal, Bower install the particular name. So it will download those components from the repository and it will put it in the client side. So this Bower is a tool which can be installed in your machine globally. So you can access it anywhere. Like this also you can use the NPM package. Instead of that, I want to have this package only in my project level. I don't want to have it in the global in my machine. For that, what we can do, just wherever you have your project, locally download this particular NPM module and install. That will be available only within this project. So in the two ways, you should be able to access this NPM modules. So before we go into the next one, let's see how can we install Node in our local machine, and if it is installed, how can we check whether it is available. So first, if you want to install Node, what do we need to do? Just go to node.org. In node.org, just go to downloads. You should be able to download whatever version you need. The Node is, as we discussed, Node is available for Windows, Linux and Mac. So here you can get whatever the installer you want. So now my machine is 64-bit, so I will be taking this Windows installer, MSI file, and once it is downloaded, if I click on this, it will run. It will install Node in our machine. In the same way, if you are using Linux or Mac, you should be able to get the corresponding files. So already I have installed my Node. Before I go into anything, first I want to check whether this Node is installed in my machine or not. So how can we check? In the terminal, just type node-v. It will give the version of Node installed in your machine. You can see it in my command prompt. It is showing the Node 0.12.0 has been installed in my machine. Okay, Node is installed. So then how can I get my NPM modules here in my local machine? Whenever you are installing the Node, automatically it will install NPM also, right? So if you want to check the NPM in the same way, npm-d, which gives the version of the NPM whatever you install. So what is the NPM? NPM is just Node Package Manager, right? So okay, so now I have Node and NPM in my machine. This is fine. But what I need is, I want to install something in my local machine as a global tool. So just let's take an example of Bower. If you want to install any other components, NPM package managers, what do we do? NPM install whatever the tool you wanted to install. So if I want to install, I want to install this Bower. So now if I type this npm install Bower, it will download this Bower component from the repository and it will install it in my machine. So that will be available only within this folder. But I don't want that. I want to install it globally. I want to access this Bower all over the page or all over my machine. So if I give -g, this npm module will be installed globally. So once you install this Bower, you should be able to access this Bower anywhere. Okay, now I'm going to install this Bower. npm install -g and Bower. So it will take some seconds to install the Bower. Let's wait. So you can see it over here. It is downloading the Bower components from the repository. So So already I have installed this bower, just so I am skipping the step. So instead of downloading the bower once again, I am stopping in between. So if you want to stop, just press Ctrl C, it will stop your download. So okay, because already I have installed bower in my machine. So if you want to check the bower, you should be able to check the same way, bower-v, it will give the version. Okay, so now I think so it's in the trouble because in the middle I stopped it. But it will be available in the project, so leave this bower components over here. For now, in the same way, we should be able to test node and npm. That's fine. Just I have installed my node. How can I write any JavaScript inside the node? How can I write a basic program? If you want to write any other node program, how do we do? First, you can write it in the node terminal. However, if you are using Java, you can write the Java program in the terminal. Save it as a .java file, then you can compile and run it. In the same way, you should be able to directly type your JavaScript program in the node terminal, which internally having Google's V8 engine. So you should be able to compile the JavaScript over there and it will give the result for your JavaScript. So let's try that. If you type node, it will take you into the node terminal. Now I'm inside node terminal. So here I'm going to write some basic JavaScript program where a equal to 10 and where b equal to 20, then where c equal to a plus b. Okay, so if I print all the console, so it will give. So it will give the result. Over here you can see it is normal JavaScript way. So if you want to declare any other variable in the JavaScript, what do we do? Just where a equal to b, a equal to 10, b equal to 20, and c equal to a plus b. Then I am printing it. Console.log, just print the c. So it will sum these a and b, it will give the result. The same way, you should be able to write all the JavaScript functionalities over here. It will be compiled and it will give the result. The same way, if I want to write some basic for loop for where I equal to 0 and I less than 5, I plus plus. So inside that I want to print the console log. Console log, just print the I equal to plus whatever the I result. So this is what I wanted to do. So you give enter, so it is performing this for loop, it's giving I equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the same way, you should be able to perform all the JavaScript operations in the node, it will give the result. This is how we will be making the basic node program. Okay, this is fine. I want to build an end-to-end web application with Node. So how can we do this? So for that, we have to use any other frameworks in our server side. So however, if you are using Java, we are using like a Struts, Spring framework, and the DB connections we are using Hibernate. The same way, we have to use some frameworks on our server side to make our life simple. So before we go into any framework, if you guys have any other question, you can ask me. I will answer for your question, guys. So we'll take 3 to 5 minutes for your questions. I will be answering for. You can post your questions in the question window. So from Raghav, we have a question. What is NPM model? So it is not an NPM model. So actually NPM is a node package manager. So if you want to use any other packages or if you want to download the packages from the repository, what do we do? Using this NPM, we should be able to download those modules from the repository and we should be able to install it in our machine. So just NPM is to download and install the node packages for your web application. That is the use of NPM. From Sasha, we have a question. Shall we use Node.js in ASP.NET MVC applications? So Node.js will act as a server. In the same way, for .NET also you will be having your own server. So why do we need to use two servers for a single application? It is like using Java and .NET for a same application. That is really not needed. If you want to use you have to use only one server-side programming, whether Node.js or .NET. So you should not mingle these two for a single web application. Then from Lada we have a question, when do we need to use Node.js? It's a good question. So whenever you have more concurrent users, or if you want to access the push mechanism, at the time you have to go for Node application instead of our traditional web applications. So what does that mean by push mechanism? So normal this traditional web application, we will make a request from our client to server. Once we get the request, from there again we will be giving the response from our server to client. This is the normal traditional web application. But if I am not at all getting any request, just I want to push the response to the client. If you, for example, how does this chat is working? So we have Facebook or Gmail, we will be having our Hangout or chat. So just we won't make any other request to the server. Our UI will be just plain simple. Once some other people ping to, that will give the response, it will be pushed to the client, right? So it is not just only client to server communication. So whenever you want to implement the server to client communication, you have to go for the node. In the same way, if you are having more concurrent user, for example, the Walmart you might hear. So in the Black Friday or other days, what will happen? There will be more offers, so more clients or users will be accessing their website. You can say it is millions of users. At the time, if you are using a normal web application with a normal machine, okay, so which can handle only limited number of users, that will be trouble over there. But whenever you are using Node, you can create multiple instances. In the same way, you can create clusters using this. Okay, so you create a cluster which will create multiple instances of your web application. With that, you should be able to use for this application for more users. That's where you have to use Node.js over other traditional web applications. From Yogeshwaran, we have a question: is npm is only source to download the Node package manager? Yeah. So if you want to download any other packages, which all the packages will be available in the npm repository. So you need this npm module to download all these packages. Otherwise, you have to write all the JavaScript code from the scratch. That is really not possible. Because, for example, if I want to create this Express framework, so the Express framework is having nearly 1,000 lines of code. You can't write everything before you start the application. Instead of already someone has built this package and it is open source, so you should be able to download that and include it in the project. So that is really simple. So if you want to download any other packages, you need npm module. From Raghav, we have a question: how many packages can be installed? That doesn't matter. So if your project needs more packages, you should be install n number of packages using this npm in your application. From Dinesh, we have a question: I didn't understand the advantage of single-threaded execution. Can you explain with the real-time examples? Okay. So for now in the webinar, we don't have time to create any example code for it. I will be giving the sample example. So just consider, whenever you are doing with a multi-threaded concept, you have to create this thread pool. Okay. So over there we will be creating multiple pools. So each and every process will be assigned to a thread that will be giving the data. So if you are using this kind of multi-threaded web applications, what do we get? We will be getting some kind of troubles. The main one of the trouble is, let's go back. So whenever we are creating the multi-thread, so we will be having this kind of deadlocks or race conditions if you are not handling the process. Otherwise, you have to do this. So it will take much time to create and to solve these kind of issues. But whenever we have only single-threaded web applications, so what will happen? We need not to handle any other threads. You can ask a question. So if it is having a single thread, how does it improve the performance? So each and everything will be assigned to a thread. So only that thread has to return the data. It is not like that. So the thread, what does it do is, it will take your process and it will assign to some other process over there, whatever it wants to do. Just it won't wait that process till completes. That is the main advantage in our Node.js. So what is it happening? Okay, I'm getting a request to get some data from my DB. In the same next itself, I'm getting one more request. Okay, parallelly, 5 people are using my Node server. So what will happen if I'm creating threads? So I'm creating just 2 threads for it. So first people is accessing and they are requesting for some operations. So it will be assigned to the first thread, and the next person is creating one more request. That will be assigned to the next thread. In the same way, all 5 people try to access your server in the same time. What will happen? So the other 3 requests will be pending because it has to complete. You have only 2 threads, so it has to complete the 2 process. Then only it will take the next request. But here it is just a single threaded. What will happen? It will take your request, it will assign to a particular job, and again it will come back. So whatever request is coming, just it will assign to a job. It won't wait till the job completes. That's the main advantage. Once the job completes, automatically it will give the response to the preferred callback functions. That is the main advantage of Node.js with just single threaded. So from Lata we have a question. Can we integrate AngularJS with Node.js? So AngularJS is just like a normal other server-side program. You can integrate whatever you want. It can have anything in the DB as well as it can have anything in the client side also. So for example, I'm an AngularJS developer. So what do we do? I will write my client side everything in AngularJS, and in the server, whatever the operations I want to do, I will write it in the Node.js and I will expose it as a web API. So there is no link between server and client. All the services are exposed as a web API. So you can use whatever you want. It can be Angular, Ember, Backbone. Just we will consume those RESTful web APIs in our client side, and we will be making the request to the server and we will be getting the response. That's it. So that doesn't matter. You can use whatever language you want in the client side. In the same way, it is not only built for MongoDB alone. So you can use SQL or Postgres. So normally for that you need some kind of module to connect. In the Java we will be having a JDBC drivers. With the help of JDBC drivers, we will be connecting to SQL or Oracle. In the same way, in Node we have modules something like Mongo client, Mongoose or MongoDB. With the module you should be able to connect to MongoDB. In the same way, if you are using Postgres or SQL, we have separate modules. Postgres, SQL. So with that module, you should be able to connect to database. So that doesn't matter. You can use any database and any client-side technology with Node application. Okay. So we'll go to the real-time example and we'll go for the normal Express framework. So why do we need to use Express framework and how can we build a web application using Express? Okay. So in Node, you have more frameworks like Happy, Express, and Co-op. So if you see, all compared to these 3 frameworks, Express is better personally I feel, because there are more number of users for it and we have more Stack Overflow questions and answers. The main thing what you have to consider, whenever you have more number of people are using a particular framework, so what does it give? So if you are getting any other doubt, you can post your questions on your forums like Stack Overflow or any other forum. You will be getting more answer for this in the quick time. That is one of the biggest advantage. And this Express is having very robust APIs which you can, with the help of these APIs, you should be able to create RESTful API in simple manner. Then it is really thin layer. So if you see the Express code, it will be not more than 1000 lines of code. So it won't increase your server side weight out. It will be really simple and clean. And one more thing, so whatever we are going to do it in the Node level, we will be exposing it as a web API. So you should be able to use the same server in your mobile as well as web. So what do we do? In the mobile or web, we will be creating only the app. In the mobile, if you do, we may use the hybrid apps. We will create all the stuff in my AngularJS or whatever the client side. We will be consuming the server wherever it hosted. So you can use this Express framework in mobile as well as web applications. And if I want to start the server, that is not complex thing. Just get the Express using your Node package manager and install it in your applications. Once you get this, just you can start the server very simply using this Express. It is not complex compared to other frameworks. And some of other Express features are something like routers, middleware, template engines, and error handlers. So what does it mean by routers? So if you want to create any other REST APIs, or if you want to navigate it, for example, whenever I load the application, I want to load some particular HTML in the browser. So what do? We will be creating our application. Whenever I type some URL, it will load some basic HTML page. If it is not loading the HTML page, I can't show any information to the user, or I can't get the data. Everything I can handle only with the command prompt. That won't help. So just I want to host the server. If they hit the server, it has to give some HTML page. That is what we are calling as a router. In the same way, if they are clicking on some other pages, they have to navigate, get the request and redirect to some other page. Those things will be handled using our Express framework with the help of this router feature. That is really simple. Next, middlewares. So before I perform any operations, let's take an example of web service calls. Before I perform it, I want to do some other operations. I want to check whether the session is valid. So okay, this is how I am doing. Once the user is logged in, I will be creating the sessions and the tokens will be available. If the next people so again they make for any other web API calls. Okay, so I have to get the request. Before I perform the operation, I want to do some kind of verification. Okay, this session is valid, or is this user is a logged in user, everything. So for that I will be using a middle layer. Over there, whatever functionalities I want to implement before the request is processed, I should be able to do it over there in the middle layers. Next, template engines. So whenever you are using Node in a server, it is not mandatory always to use only the HTML. We have n number of templates like J, Hogan, EJS, everything. So what? So you, with this help of Express framework, you can mention your template engine on the server side. So you should be able to write a program on the specific template engines. So why do I need to use any other templates first of all in my web applications? So if you use this template, what does it do is directly you can bind the data from the server to our client. So normally if we are not using any template HTML, what do? We make a request. Once we get the data in your JavaScript and find a class or ID, then bind this event. Instead of this, whenever you are using any other template, we should be able to access. You just pass the HTML with some response data that will be accessible in the client side itself. In the same way, you should be able to implement some kind of loop functionalities also inside the template itself, and it will be really clean and simple. Okay, just we are talking about only this template. Before that, let's take a look how can we implement a basic J template in our application. So if you want to create a J template, so how do we write? First we want to write a HTML. Instead of writing the HTML, we can write any templates. Okay. So in the HTML, if we want to write HTML, we have to create the HTML tag and the open tag. In the left side, I am creating the J template. So it will be compiled as a HTML. That's what you are seeing right here. Okay. So if I want to create a basic application, I will be writing like this: HTML. Inside that I want to have a head. Inside that I want to have a title. This is something, test data. Once it is over, I want to have my body over here. Body, it will be having a div. In the same way, whatever you want to create, so just we need not to create this close and the open tag. You just give the HTML element itself, it will be automatically creating the close and open tags. In the same way, I want to pass some parameter over here. Okay, just let's have an input tag. The input tag, I want to pass some parameter, something like type equal to text. Then whatever you want. So class equal to whatever the class you want. Test data. Okay. So whatever you are typing right here, that will be compiled. So here you can see it is very less number of code and it's very simple compared to the HTML. If you are writing the HTML, you have to create your open tag, close tag, and other things. But if you use any other templating engine like Jade or Hogan, you need not write those things, and you can create it as a template, and wherever you want, you should be able to load those templates out. That is also possible if you are using any other template engine in our web application. Okay, so we have seen enough about this Express framework. So instead of just going through the theory, let's build some web application. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we will be building an end-to-end web application. We will be exposing a web service. If you want to call the MongoDB, we will be making call to MongoDB also. Let's go here. So here what I am going to do, I will be creating a new folder, demo. So whenever you want to start your Node application, it will be starts from your package.json. So let's create a package.json. Package.json. I created one file called package.json. So what does it mean by package.json? So in the package.json only, we will be having all our dependencies, whatever you needed for the web application. So what does it mean by dependencies? For my Node.js web application, I want to use Express as a framework, and I want to use this body parser module. Everything I will be installing through the npm repository, from the npm repository. So those things I have included. I want to mention, okay, those things are my dependencies in the web application. So that will be available in this package.json. So let me open this package.json in my favorite editor, that is Sublime. Okay, so in the package.json, we have two fields. Those are all the mandatory fields. One is name. I'm going to call it as a REST API. Then next one is the version. So these two things are mandatory fields in the web application. Okay. So here other things you can give, something like author and the description if you want to give for a web application. Everything you can give it over here also. Just I don't want to give those things. Only these two are mandatory fields. I have given this. So let's go to our command prompt. cd plus demo. So we are inside that particular folder. If you see inside that folder, we have only package.json. Now everything is ready. Now I want to install my npm modules for the application. So how do we do? Npm install Express. So I want to use the Express framework. So this Express framework, before I install, let me show this folder. Inside the folder, there is nothing is there. You can see it over here. You have only package.json upload. Now what I am doing inside that folder, I am installing this Express module. npm install Express. So it will download this module from the repository. You can see it over here, it is loading. So that has been installed. If you go inside the same folder, you can see it has created one folder called node modules, node_modules, and inside that you have your package. That is the Express. Everything is available over here. Just I have typed something like npm install Express. It has downloaded from the repository and installed it for my project. Okay, that is fine. But if you see it in the package.json, nothing is available. Later, whenever I am coming, I want to see how the packages mean. Just I can't go inside the node modules and I can't see. I want to see it over here itself. So I have to mention all the dependencies. You need not to write the dependencies manually. So instead of that, what you can do, whenever you are installing the npm modules, just give ---- save also. So what does it do? It will install the module as well as it will save this Express in the dependency list of your package.json. So whenever I type this ---- it will download and it will install the module as well as it will write it in the package.json. Let's go over here. Now you can see the dependencies. I didn't write any other code. Automatically it has written these dependencies in the application. So dependencies Express has been installed. The version of the Express is 4.13. So now this is available. So to build my web application, I don't need only the Express. Okay, so I need some other modules also. We'll be installing that later. So now I have to write my server-side code. Okay, so here we will be writing everything as a JavaScript. So let me save one more JavaScript file over here. I'm going to call it as app.js. Now I have created one basic JavaScript file. Now I want to create the Express application where Express equal to, so I want to access that module, whatever I have downloaded over here. So if you want to access, how do we do? Require and that module name. So that module already installed. So if you use this require, we should be able to get all these functionalities available in the module, and that will be passed to this variable called Express. Now it has been done. Later what I want to do, where app equal to Express. So just we are instantiating that Express module. So however we have our, in the class we will be having the constructor method. So whenever you instantiate the class, it automatically will call the constructor, it will give the operations, do the operation. The same way, here we are creating the instantiating that particular Express, and we are giving that reference to the app. So all the features and functionalities, whatever available in this Express framework, you should be able to access with the help of this app variable. Now this is also ready. Now I want to start the service. So how can we start the service over here in the Node.js with the help of Express? So how do we do? App.listen to some particular port. Okay, I want to listen to this port 9000. Then function request and a response. Or you need not to give this option. Just listen alone is enough. So once I start the listening, I want to print a console in the terminal. Console.log listening to port number, whatever it is. Okay, port 9000. Now I made a console log. So here you can see, whenever it starts listening to this particular port, it will give this message in the console. So how can I start the web application? So go to your terminal. Here in the list you can see I have app.js, node modules and package.js. I have created this code in the app.js. So here I want to start it. So node app.js. So like this only we will be starting our web application in Node. Whenever I do this, so now it is giving the console. It is listening to port number 9000. So if I want to launch this in the browser, what do? We will go to the browser, localhost and 9000. So whenever I hit this 9000, it is giving cannot get any other HTML because you created the server alone, but we didn't mention any other HTML. So we have to give. So whenever I start the server, open the specific HTML for my web application. So how can I do this? So here we will be creating the route method. So this Express is having one more feature that what we discussed, that is a route. So using the route, we should be able to send the data to the browser, or you should be able to redirect it, or you can share the files also. Okay, now I am going to create the route. So after get, whatever that get request, that's what I am giving start. So whenever it is getting the request from the browser, so here you can see, right? So if you guys are familiar with the Chrome browser, we will be having the network tab. So whenever we launch, it is making a call. Just it is making a call. There is no route is available. That's why it is giving 404. Okay, now I am creating the route. So whatever that route is, whatever the service call comes, it will come to this function. So in the function, we will be getting the request as well as the response as the parameters. So once it comes inside the function, I want to give the response as a file. Send file. So what I want to share is directory name. So in this directory name will be giving where you are running this particular app. So that will give this directory name. Plus, I'm going to create one more folder called client. So here I will be having all the client side logic / index.html. So what I want to do, I want to create one folder called the client. Inside that I want to create the index.html. Let's go to the folder again. Let's create one more new folder, client. So inside that client, I'm creating a new file, index.html. So I have created the index.html. Let's open that file in our editor. go to the client. Inside the client, I have an empty index.html. Let's create the basic stuff. Demo. So here I am giving h1 inside h1 index.html. Okay. So just what I am doing, whenever I get a request from the server, it will come over here. It will give this file as a response. So this response will be served to the browser. So you should be load this file in the browser. Okay. Let's go over here to the server. Let's restart the server. Clear? And node app.js. So it's starting the server. It's listening to 9004. Now go over here. Just I'm refreshing. So I'm getting this HTML. So here you can see whenever I load this, it is making a call. It's a get call, because whenever you are not giving any other method type, it will be default considered as a get type. So it is making a call and it is served as a response. You can check the response. It is serving the whole HTML file as has been served as a response. Now we got this. Okay, we got the normal file. Now what I want to do, I want to create some kind of API layers, and I want to use some other frameworks in my client side also. Just consider from Lada we had a question, I can use the AngularJS. So let's use the AngularJS in the client side. Okay, now what I'm going to do, so if you want to use AngularJS, you have to keep the AngularJS min file or any AngularJS file in the application, right? So let's go over here. Already I have the AngularJS file. Let me copy that file alone. Here in the client, I have added that angular.min.js. Now I want to write the AngularJS stuff, so I am creating one more file. Just custom.js. So this is also ready. Now let me go to the syntax. Let me create it as an AngularJS application. So first what we need to do, we have to include the AngularJS script. Source equal to angular.min.js. Then the another source. Script source custom.js. So whatever file I have created over here, I have created the custom.js. Here only I will be writing my client side logics. So I have included these two files. So how do we start the AngularJS app? You have to mention ng app directive, and the app I'm going to call it as REST. So you have to define those apps in the custom.js. So where app equal to module of REST, and we are giving some empty dependencies. We are not going much in depth in the Angular. So just I'm creating a controller. I'm going to call it as a REST controller. Then function, I will be creating the scope and the HTTP. Console.log inside my controller. Okay, so this is ready, and I have to define my controller also here. ng controller. So whatever the controller name I mentioned right here, REST CDR. So we have created the basic application. One is my client. In the client I am using AngularJS. In the server I have created the normal application. It is running on the server. So I want to run it. So if I run, what will happen? We are serving these two files, source file and the Angular file and the custom.js. So it has to serve from the server side. We didn't write any other code for it. So whatever it is, we are just serving only the HTML. We are not serving the exact file. So let's see what happens for this. So I'm going to start the web application again. So it has started, it's listening to 9004. So whenever I refresh, so here you can see Angular min.server, because I have included this Angular min.js and the custom.js. So it is making the request for Angular min.js and the custom.js. If I click, but it is getting only the HTML alone. In the response you can see in min.js as well as the custom.js, we are getting only the HTML response, because in our server side what we mentioned, whatever the request, we are not going to worry. Just I want to return this data alone. So this is what we have written over there. Instead of that, we have to, whatever the request we are getting, for that we need to return the corresponding data. So how can we do this? So app dot get. So if my request is like this, slash, so I am writing some kind of regex expressions which can get only the request ends with .js or .css or .html, it will give only those data. That is what I am going to write a regex expression. Star question mark, and if it ends with dot, and the whole word it will be searching. If it ends with 2 or 3 characters, it will be searching for this one. So what I have written, if my APIs is like this, so we will be getting the data. Okay, function. In the same way, we will be having request and response. So what I want to do, as a response, I don't want to return this. So whatever the request URL I will be getting, return the same URL. So rest.send file directory name plus, so whatever that is, it will be underneath this client. It will be underneath this client folder, and whatever you are getting in the request URL. So I have added this. So if the request URL ends with dot some other 2 characters, it will come over here and we will be returning those files. So instead of that, let me put console.log message over here. So I should be able to show what is the request URL we are getting. Console.log, let's print the request URL. Request URL will be req.url. So just I'm printing this request URL. Then let's print this directory name also, whatever we are getting. Console.log, let's print dir underscore underscore dir name. Okay, let's run this web application again. I started the web app. So it's giving an error message. This underscore underscore dir is not possible because it is a syntax error. I missed the comma. Okay, it's a syntax error. So for the console.log, we have to give plus or comma, so it will give the data. So let me start the web app again. So it is listening to the 9000 port. Now let's go over here and refresh the web app. Now I refreshed. If you see it in Angular, so it is giving whatever it is available in the AngularJS file, and in the custom.js, whatever I have written, that has been given as a response. Now it is really clear. So let's go to the terminal. Let's see what is being over there. In the directory, it is giving the path, full path. It's available in the fcolon, tunes, webinar, and demo. So over there only, I have this application. Right? So inside the demo, the app.js, where is it there? In the fcolon, tunes, webinar, and the demo. This giving that as a directory. Then the request URL is first I am making for /angular.min.js. The next one I am making for custom.js. It is coming inside this and it has been served this specific file. Now it is clear. Okay, we have created the basic web application which has been written over there. Now I want to do the basic operations. Okay, whenever I click on some button, I want to make a request come to the service level. Okay, let's go over here. In the index.html, I am going to create one more field. They are going to have name, input type equal to text, and ng model equal to name. So I have just a field name, and here button send data. Then ng click send. Just I'm creating a function. So how do we call this? Just go to your JS file. Let's create that function. $scope.send equal to function. So what I want to do, I want to make a REST API. So here, let me create an API. App.post. So if I get any other post method, and if the URL is /API/post or /users, comma, a function of, it will be having its own request and the response. Okay, in the same way, let's create a get method also. Before the post, let's put the get method. App.get, I'm creating /API/user function. It will be having request and the response. So whenever I get this one, I want to give the response as a JSON, and the JSON object should be like this. Okay, first one the data and test. So what will happen? This has been exposed as a web API. Let's do this. So whenever I click on the specific button, it will call this AngularJS function. Here I want to consume that API. So how do we consume the API in the AngularJS? $HTTP of what is the method of our program? This REST API, it is just get. So let's create a method. Method is get and URL is whatever the URL I have given right here. The URL is /API/users. So let's give that URL. So once it is success, it will come to the specific function. It will be having some kind of response. Console.log, it will be having a response. So whatever response I am sending it from there, that will be available over here. Okay, now what I am doing is whenever I click on the button, it will make the $HTTP request and we will be getting the data. Yes, that will be printed in the console. Okay, let's go to our terminal, clear everything. Let's start the server. No error, it's listening to this code. So let's go over here, refresh. Now I have this send data. So whenever I click on the send data, what will happen? It will make a REST call to the server side. And once it reaches the server side, the server will give the response whatever we have written over here. So it will give this response as this. Okay, let's try that. So I'm clicking on the send data. In the network tab, you can see it is made a call /users, right? In the headers, you can see it is localhost /9000/API/users. They are making a web API call. Once that is done, it is giving the response. What is the response? Data/test. Whatever we have written over here. This JSON has been returned to the browser. So this is how we will be making a normal web APIs. Okay, this is for the get. So what I want to do now is I want to post the data. So how can I do this? So let's go to the UI again. So let's make it as a get. Okay. Now I want to create one more method in the same way. So I'm copy pasting the same method and I'm going to make it as send data. So this will be a post method and the API will be the same, and I want the post, so I want to pass some data from the UI. So data will be, I am passing the data. So let's hardcode the data over here, where data equal to, otherwise whatever data I am going to get it from the UI. First one is name, that will be $scope.name, so whatever I am going to get. Then age, $scope.age. Then designation, DSIG, I am going to call it as $scope.DSIG. Okay, just I created this particular JSON object and I will be passing the JSON object from the client side to my server side, so that I should be able to access it over there. So let's go to the HTML. In the same way, let's create some more fields. So I'm going to have it as a age, and this will be designation. This will be the text, and it will be a age, and this will be designation. Now everything is set, and whenever I click on this button, it will call the send method. The send method over here will make a call post and API/user, and we are passing the data. Now in the server side, you can see it will come to this post. It is having the same URL, but this method is get and this method is post. So if I make a call for the post method, you can see it over here that I'm making a call for the post method. So it will come to this particular API. And I'm giving some data. How can I access the data over here? So where data equal to, let's try the data. Request dot body. So in the body only you will be getting all the data. Let's print a console message, console.log data. Okay, so in the request.body will be available. Just I am passing to this variable called data. And for this we have to use some response. For now I am going to hardcode the response JSON. So same data equal to, so whatever data we are sending from the UI, that will be passed as a response. I am doing only that. If I try to access, I am not using any other middle layer, so you should not be able to get this body parameter whatever you are sending from the UI. So I am going to use some middle layer. So that middle layer is body parser. So if you want to use that, what we have to do, we have to install it by npm module. So npm install body parser and -- save. It will save it in the package.json also. So it's installing this body parser for our application. Now let's take a look in the folder in Node package. It has installed the body parser also. So I want to access the body parser. So how do we access? Where body parser equal to require the body parser module name. So I have taken this module and it will be available in this body parser. So I want to use it as a middle layer. So how can I use app.use? So whatever request I will be getting, that will be passed through this middle layer, and using the body parser, all the data whatever you are passing, that will be available in the request body. Body parser, we are creating just instantiating. So each and every request will be passed to this middle layer and it will convert it. So now what we are doing, we will come over there. If I click on the send button, we will print this console message and it will give the same data as a response. That's what I built it right here. So let's clear everything. Let me start the Node application. There is no error. It is listening to the specific port called 9000. So let me refresh. Here also there is no error. What I am going to do, here I will be entering some data. Hello or something. I'm Dinesh. The age I am going to enter and the designation developer. Okay. Whenever, let me clear this network tab. Whenever I click on the send, it is posting the data. You can see it over here. The method is post. And the URL, what you can see it in the headers. So this is what we are posting. /API/user and the method type is post, and I am giving this data. Dinesh and age is 30 and developer. Whatever entered over here, that has been passed to that API. And in the response, you are getting in the data name Dinesh, age 30 designation. Whatever the response what we passed, that will be available. So you can see in the console also, this request has been printed in the console. This is how we will be creating the web APIs in Node.js with the help of Express framework. So if you guys have any other question, you can post. We'll spend 5 minutes for answering your questions. Okay. So from first question we have from the Raghav. So what is the difference between Node.js and AngularJS? So Node.js is a server-side component. The Node.js will act as a runtime environment. So however you are installing Java in your machine, that will act as a runtime environment. On top of it, you should be able to write all the Java programs. In the same way, the node will be act as a runtime environment. On top of it, you can write the server-side program. The AngularJS is a client-side framework. Over there, you can write all the client-side business logics and the validations. These two are totally different. Angular is for the client side and Node is a server. So from Dinesh we have a question, is the body parser is only module for passing the data in the NPM. So if you are using Express, this is the best module available in the NPM repository to pass the data. So you should be able to read those data from our request body. Otherwise it will throw error over here. So whenever you are using the Express framework with the Node, better you should go for this body parser module. From Lata we have a question, where does app.js runs? Okay. So this app.js is a normal JavaScript file. So what we are doing, whenever we type something called node app.js, that will start the server. You can see it in our code. Okay, so what we are doing in the app.js, first we are getting the Express module and we are instantiating the Express module that will be available in this app. After that, in the end, we are listening to the specific port. You can see it over here. After listen to some specific port. So this will run it as a node application, and this will be running on the server side, not in the client side. Okay, what we are doing, node, and whatever your name you are giving, that will be running in the server side of your application. So that is running on the node. So from Yogeshwaran we have a question, is it possible to automatically reload the server as we edit the code? So if you are using any other grunt or this kind of task runners, you should be able to configure the task. Over there, if you do that, automatically whenever it will watch for the code change. So if any change happens, automatically the live reload will reload the whole application and it will restart the server also. So you need not to do that. So for that, you have to use the grunt task runner or gulp. So from Munawar we have a question, how to access the database like MongoDB? Yeah, the next we will see that how can we configure the MongoDB with our node level. So next we will go for that one only. So from Tommy Gold we have a question, can we use request parameter to get the parameters? Yes, so you can see the code over here. Now what I am doing, I am sending everything in the body parameter. Instead of that, I need to get the data for specific user. So how does it act as users slash and it will be the user ID. So what is it? It is the request parameter. So from the UI, what do we do? It will be like slash API slash users slash whatever that parameter it is available, that you should be able to access it over here with the help of request colon params. Okay, so request params will give all the parameters. With the parameters.user ID, you should be able to access all the request params. That is also possible. It is not only for the request body. So with the help of this one, you should be able to access the request parameters also. That is possible. From Dinesh we have a question. Suppose I host the web application, what will be the place of port? Okay, so if you are hosting the web application, normally what do we do? We will be getting the server somewhere like GoDaddy, or if you have your own server, you can get the server. The port number, that doesn't matter. So wherever you want to host the web application, you can give the port. For example, I have multiple applications. Okay, one I have hosted in the Node, another one in the Java, another something in the some other applications. Okay, so Java normally configured in the 8080 port. In the same way, if I give the same port number, it will throw the conflict because already one application is running on that. I want to host it as a separate application. So I will give some different port. So you can give whatever port number you want over here. That will be listening to that specific port. So that doesn't matter, you can give whatever the port number. So you have to just know the IP of your machine alone. Now it is running locally. That's why I am giving IP as a just local host. That will consider take my local IP of my machine. So if you are running in the external server, you have to give the IP of that specific server, and you can give whatever the port number you want. So from Jayachandra we have a question. GoDaddy will support node hosting. Now recently they started this node hosting also, but that is not fully available. But if you want, they are supporting partially. Otherwise, you can buy a dedicated server in the GoDaddy hosting. In the dedicated server, whatever you want to host, you can host it over there. But that is little costly. So okay, before we move to the next question, we have just 20 minutes. So let's go over there and let's see how can we configure MongoDB with our application. So if I want to configure the why do we need first of all MongoDB? So normally the traditional DBs are like SQL or Oracle. Over there, what we do? We will be storing only the tabular structured data. So instead of the tabular structured data, if I want to store the full JSON object itself and the schemaless data, we will be going for MongoDB. So we can store the whole JSON object itself in the Mongo. How can we connect the MongoDB with our application? So for that, we need some modules. Let's expand. Okay. So connected to MongoDB. So in the MongoDB, if you want to connect, we need some kind of third-party modules like Mongoose, MongoDB or Mongo client. So for now today's example, we will take this Mongoose module. So using this module, we will be creating a connection to the MongoDB with some particular database. After that, we should be able to perform all the code operations, that is create, update, delete, everything. Okay, so let's go over here and we will take the module. So how do we do? First now I want to use Mongoose module in the application. So I have to install npm install Mongoose -save. So what it will do, it will install it in the application as well as it will write it in the package.json as a dependency. So it is downloading. Let's wait. It will take a few seconds. Okay, so everything is set. It has installed this Mongoose in the application. Now I wanted to use the Mongoose in the server side. So how do we do? Normally where Mongoose equal to require the module name. Now I got all the Mongoose functionalities that have been passed to this Mongoose variable. So here I have to connect to my MongoDB. So how do we do? Mongoose.connect. Where do you want to connect? MongoDB localhost. So because my MongoDB is running in the localhost. So how do we start the MongoDB? Let's go over here. Before that, let's start the MongoDB also. MongoDB server also. MongoD.exe. So this is how I will be starting the server. --db path :MongoDB/data. So it has MongoDB server has been started. So this MongoDB server is listening to this specific port. You can see it over here, port number 27017. So I have to give this one. So localhost :27017. It is listening to this specific port. So okay, this is fine. So in the MongoDB, let's go to the MongoDB itself. Now I am going to the MongoDB terminal. MongoDB, let's see what are all the databases I have. Show DBS. So if you see over here, I have n number of databases. For now, I want to create a new database for this web application. I don't want to create any other databases over here in the DB. Automatically, if I mention any other database name, it will be created using this Mongoose module. Now I want to create one database called REST API. REST API. Okay, so this is my DB name. So like this, we will be connecting to MongoDB with our Mongoose model. So now I will be able to connect. So I have to create some kind of schema and I want to update the data or get the data. This is all the functionalities I wanted to do. So let's try how can we do that also. So let's go over here. Where is it? Okay, this MongoDB, everything is set. Okay, now let's, where is that command prompt? Alright, sorry, it's here. Okay, now let's start the application. How do we start? Node app.js. So now it has been started. Our app has been started and it has been connected to MongoDB also. So if I want to perform any other MongoDB operation, first I have to create a schema where schema equal to new mongoose.schema. So okay, I am creating the new schema over here. So we will be creating the schema, and whatever schema you are having over here, that will be processed. Okay. So where user schema equal to new schema of, so whatever data you want to pass. So my MongoDB structure will be look like this. First I will be having a name field and that will be a string. Then I will be having a age, that should be a number. Next, designation. So whatever we have now, we will have the same schema. Then I will be having designation, SIG, and that will be a string again. Now everything is set. Now what I am doing, just I have created a user schema and I mentioned the schema also. Then I want to create a model. In the MongoDB you will be having, instead of table you will be having the collections will be having the documents. So now I mentioned my MongoDB collection will look like this. This will be the schema of my MongoDB. So now I want to create a model where user equal to mongoose.model of whatever your collection name. I am going to call my collection as users. Then I want to pass this schema as my user schema. Now everything is set. I have created a mongoose. I connected to the MongoDB using this command and I created a schema and the schema has been passed to the specific user. Okay, now what I want to do, whenever I click on the post, already we have seen it came till this area, right? Now I want to create a mongoose connect to post the data in the DB. So how can we do? User, that model whatever I created, it is available in the user. User.create. So this is how we will be pushing the data to the MongoDB collection. And what I want to do, push whatever data I am passing from the UI. So that will be available in the data. So data comma function, it will be having error and the object. Right? So here, if I get any other error, you have to handle all the error scenarios. If I get any other error, return response.json, whatever the data. So I want to mark it as status error, and what is that error message? So comma, so the message will be whatever error you are getting. So that will be passed as a response to the UI. If I am not getting any other error, so what I am doing, return response as a JSON and the status will be success and the data will be object. So whatever it returns. This is what I wanted to do. So now what we are doing, just we connected to the MongoDB layer and we created a schema for this, then we pass that schema to the user model. So the user model will be available. In that user model, we are creating the data. So just whatever data we will be getting from the UI, that will be pushed to this user model. Let's do this. So how can we do? First you have to restart the server because we don't have any other task runners. So clear node app. Now we have started the server. There is no error till now. Let's go to the browser. Yeah, it is. Where is it? Here. Refresh. No error. So I'm giving some data. Dinesh and age. I'm going to give some string and the designation. Let's give over here 30 designation developer. Let's create this. Whenever I click on the send data, it is making the REST API and it has posted the data. So now let's go over here. So till this time what you are seeing, there is no DB called REST API, right? So now after connecting the data, if you check that show DBS, now the new DB has been added, that is called REST API. So let's use that DB. Use REST API. Then I want to see the collections, whatever the collections I have. Show collection. So whenever I do this, you are seeing the collection, only the user collection. That's what we created in the model in the model, if you see, we have created the collection name as a users, right? You can see it over here. So the collection name I marked that as a users. So that collection has been created. Let's see what do we have inside that collection. Clear db.users.find. So whenever I type this, it's giving the data. Name Dinesh, age 30, designation developer. So whatever the data I inserted, that will be available inside the collection. Let's make it as a pretty so it will be clear. So you are seeing the data. So whenever you do this, automatically it will create one unique ID, that is underscore ID, that will be inserted with each and every document. In the same way, let's insert some other document also. Refresh the web app, go here, I'm inserting the next data. Frame, and instead of the string number, I'm going to give some string for the age, and the designation I'm give Java developer. Click on send data. So what is happening? Let's see the response. In the response, you can see that is a error, and it is giving the clear error message. You can see it over here. Error, Mongo's validations error, and the error message is it is giving to pass the date instead of number to string. So it will give the clear error message over here. Okay. Now if you see it in the MongoDB, that data won't be inserted. Only we have only our first data. Instead of this one, if I give some other number, so try to give the number and try to send the data. So once we insert, that data has been inserted in the MongoDB. Let's see the data. Whenever I click, so now I have two objects. One is to the first one, Dinesh age 30 developer. The next one, frame age 24, and the Java developer. The data is available that has been inserted. This is just for inserting the data. Okay, this is fine. So now instead of inserting, if I want to get the data, how can I do that? So okay, right here we have this application. Now I want to get the data. So for that, how can you do? Let's here go to the user collection, and in the user collection I want to get the data. So we'll be using find empty, comma, the function, it will be having error and the users object. Okay, so it will find. So here instead of this, if you are giving any other conditions, it will take that condition and it will return only that specific data. But I am not going to give any other condition, so it will give the whole JSON object. Whatever is available in the collection, everything will be returned. Right here, I will be getting the data. So let me copy paste it to save the time. So here, whatever I am getting. So if it is the error, it will give the error message. Otherwise, it will give the success. So what I want to call this /API. Let's go over here. Already I have the /API and I need the method called get. Okay. So in the index.html, I am creating a method. ng click. It has to be a get data. Okay. Everything is done. Let's restart the application. Now it is started. Let's go to here and refresh the web page. Now we have the same data already we have seen. Now let me click on the button get data. So whenever I click on the button, it has returned the data. So still it is giving the test underscore data alone. Let's take a look what I have over there. So in the /API. So before that itself, I have given the response. That's why it's not coming inside this. Let me delete that response. That was the error. Now it is listening to that port. Go over here, clear the data, click on get data. So it has given the response. Now you can see the whole JSON object, whatever returned. Let's put it in the JSON editor. Just I am copy pasting the JSON in the JSON editor. So here you can see the JSON, the status is success, and whatever data is available, that has been returned over here. So from the MongoDB, it's getting the data and it is returned. So you can see the code. What I am doing, just I am making the call. In the MongoDB, we are making the find query, we are getting all the data that has been passed to the server, from the server to client side, we are passing through this REST APIs. This is how we will be creating RESTful APIs in Node.js with the help of Express framework. And if you want to connect to the MongoDB, we can use any other modules, something like Mongoose or MongoDB or MongoCrate. With the help of these kind of modules, you should be able to connect to any other DB also. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, now we have seen the connecting to the MongoDB and why do we need MongoDB, how can we connect everything. So we have seen the demo. So if you are learning some other new technology, you have to get to know whether that is really adding anything in my resume weightage, or do we have more opening for this technologies. If you see, this Node.js has been launched in past 4 years. Okay, now most of the people started using this Node.js in the application because of it can support concurrent user, and the performance wise also it will be faster than the traditional web application. Why is it? It is having only single threaded and asynchronous call, then the event loop. Because of this thing, the performance will be better. So whoever starting a new project, they started everything with the Node applications, because you can do whatever you are doing with the old traditional application. Everything is possible, and you can build this very rich application in very small amount of time. Now you are seeing in within half an hour or 45 minutes, we have created a RESTful API and we inserted the data in the MongoDB, returned the data, everything we have done. So if you see like this, the Node.js is very simple to create a web application compared to other traditional web applications. Okay. So if you see, our Edureka is offering the course for Node.js. So what are all the topics we will be covering in this course? First, it will be nearly 8 modules that we will be covering it in the 4 weekends. Okay. So in the first module, we will be having introduction to hoops concept, the JavaScript and Node.js. Next, we will be discussing about the node modules, whatever we have, and how can we use those node modules using the npm and the bower, other stuff. The third one, we will be discussing about the events. If we have multiple events, how can we handle? Because it's a single threaded, and do we need to do any other coding? So those things we will be discussing in the module 3. And how can we handle the stream data? You have a very large amount of data in the MongoDB, like lakhs or thousands of DB their documents. So I can't get data into single stretch. I want to have the stream functionality. Just will be streaming the data. How can I do that? Then next to fourth module, we will be discussing about the network communications, web technologies in Node. And fifth, we will be building a web application with the Node with the Express framework and some other DBs. And the sixth module, we will be discussing about the real-time communication with the push mechanism. So how can you push the data from server to the client? And if I have more servers client has been registered, how can we push to specific client using the socket.io? That we will be discussing in the module 6. In module 7, we will be discussing about the clustering, fools and spawns. We will be discussing these things in the module 7. In 8 and 9, we will be doing the basic project using Node, and client side will be using Ember or AngularJS for the client side application. This is what we will be covering in our Edureka courses. So now we have this offer. So whoever doing this Node.js, and we will be getting 35% off on PHP and SQL. It will be valid till only this 28th June 2015. So what are all the features we have in our Edureka? One is live online classes. All the classes will be recorded and it will be available in our LMS. If you have missed any classes also, that will be available. So you can go over there, you can check those videos. And next, it will be having 24/7 support. If you have any other question, you can send out a mail to our support team, or you can call to the support number. The doubts will be clarified. The next one, each and every module should be having its own quiz. So once the module has been covered, we will be having a quiz. You can answer for the quiz, then you will get to know what you learned in the module, whether that has really helped or not. At last, we will be having our Node.js project. We will be building an end-to-end web application with Node.js with everything, push mechanism, and creating multiple clusters for the Node application and other stuffs. At last, we will be getting, once the project is over, you will be getting the certificate from our Edureka that you can automatically add it to the LinkedIn profiles also. That will give more weightage for your profile. Okay guys, thank you very much for attending this webinar. If you guys have any other more questions, feel free to write it to our support team, or you can post it in our Edureka website, so we will be able to answer for those questions. Thank you very much guys once again. Have a nice day.